was a Lots of Little Red's second transfer installment, and while I can't say for certain I know what's going on, there are certain patterns emerging and certain things that cause me to wonder and ask questions. First, let's discuss the four we met previously in the first transfer video. From the decoded message of WLP2, it's now clear that my theory about JJ and Tonya not working in the same location as Ivan was incorrect. The person in the message, who seems to be Ivan, talks about hanging out with them at lunch. We now know for certain that the answer to "Where is Ivan Carpenter?" is that he's probably dead, seemingly chased and killed by someone trying to prevent him from looking further into the mystery of the incident, which we now know is probably the Party 91st incident. Although rumours about how he died seems to mean that no one actually knows how he was killed, what seems to be sure is that he was found in a locker, only the locker can't be found. However, Night Dog in my comments suggested something that I think is true. We've seen the locker, many times by now. The close view we get is the cutting clip during Tell the Hair. I think this item in the forest might be the missing locker. We see footage taken from Ivan's camera of his being chased through a jungle gym, but the end part is missing and we're told it's with Ivan's family. I wonder though if maybe there's something on that clip that could give us more clues. Another question however is, why was Ivan at the warehouse in the first place? Ivan was an audio engineer, someone who worked on restoring, transferring and updating the old tapes Illusion Plus gave him. I think he was there for much the same reason Kara and Andrew later sneak in. He was looking for more evidence or clues about an incident. JJ had already found some stuff, shown it to Ivan. It's very likely that the old files we saw him refer to at the time could have been stored at the warehouse nearest to the place the Party 91st incident took place in, which might even have been the same old location that JJ had been sent to. Or it could be possible that anything the company didn't want to be seen related to this incident could also be stored there. Since the last time we know Ivan was alive for certain was shortly before New Year's 2011, but JJ talks about Ivan as if the man is dead in his forum post of 2012, it's very likely that Ivan died sometime within the year of 2011. That is, if he's dead for sure. Throughout the video it's always mentioned that he disappeared and only Andrew seems sure that he is dead. But given how iffy he seems on the details and that no one ever found the locker Ivan died in, I have to ask how in that case people found the body of a man in a locker that supposedly vanished. Speaking of JJ, we get to learn an awful lot about the man in the content we've been offered this time. The guy runs what seems to be a podcast talking about local issues and interesting mysteries, and worked not on restoring tapes as Ivan did, but instead was sent to old locations to salvage older technology. We know now that it was him showing the documents he found to Ivan that kick-started off the efforts of the 4 Illusion Plus workers from the first video. And from his forum post of 2012, it's clear he feels responsible for what happened to him. We know from the August editor notes backhaul that at some point the message was deleted, although whether it was by the admins of Rec Room or JJ himself is unclear. What is clear is that JJ has become unreachable by this point, although we know he's probably still alive given that he talks about how his podcast is being sponsored by Little Red's Marine Mania, a deal that wasn't announced publicly until sometime around mid-2013. It's possible that Marine Mania was being promoted before this though, so it's not definitive proof. It's worth noting that JJ doesn't talk about any big mysteries in the sections we hear of the Informational Inquisitor, so possibly what happened to Ivan has scared him into backing off from the mystery and maybe the others of the group. He might even have been intimidated into remaining silent. Tonya's part in this is short. We know that she is also dead, found dead on the floor of the bedroom of her house. The killing has been connected to Ivan's disappearance. The video we get that was supposedly found outside her house is marked as being from the AR Little Rock location, which seems odd, but I take it to mean that it's either connected to what happened there, or that possibly that location is the one Tonya was assigned to. While it is the older location that the Party 91st incident occurred at, there's nothing to actually suggest that it's not still an operational establishment in the present day. Tonya's role in the group could easily have been as their inside person at the very location where the incident occurred. However, it seems that she was shot, and I wonder if the clip we see after the shooting from seemingly outside her house has something to do with it. It could be that she was investigating the galley game, but when it got weird and a message appeared in the mirror, Tonya thought herself in too deep or was creeped out. We know that there was at least one shot before she died, and she was weeping terrified, gasping sobs at the time. It could be that she shot the screen the game was on and then herself afterwards, or else she's another victim of whoever is trying to keep this all hushed up. but we don't yet have any definitive evidence of Tonya having an involvement with anyone else outside of the group of 4 from the first transfer video. We also learn that she was apparently sent one of the Barleytail birthday phone messages by someone, possibly Ivan, as she loved Gelly. I also wonder if the confident woman from the news report, the one whose audio was replaced by the distorted bot, might be Tonya, and therefore I have to wonder if her testimony holds some important detail for the story. Finally, we move on to the last of the 4, Eric. Eric seems to be the last survivor of the 4, as we see what appears to be footage he's shot of him trying desperately to reach the other 3. On screen is the forum post, and therefore it's a possibility that the person who screencapped and reposted the image of the post was Eric himself. However, in the voice messages he leaves during this clip, it's clear that he's freaked out by the others vanishing or not responding. He seems to be trying Tonya as his last resort. This seems to suggest to me that Tonya was the last one to disappear out of the 3 others, and that would mean that the person Eric can't get to respond to messages is JJ, if indeed Ivan is thought to be dead. Messages we decode from hidden content also helps us confirm a few things related to Eric. The man is not superstitious, and some of his freaked out state is probably down to the spooky stuff he's seeing while investigating old Illusion Plus media, and that someone who is stuck seemingly within the videos is looking for Eric, that Eric is at introduction tape and can take this person home. I also think that there's a possibility that the message we see near the start of Vessel of Notion, the one saying that they need all of us help on this, might be Eric. After all, the decoded message on WLP2 also talks about hoping that Eric gets together a group of people to help him out with this, and maybe Eric has. I think now that given the decoded messages we can take from the tapes, there must be some sort of consciousness trapped within the videos. We can also confirm that there are multiple people trapped within, and at least 2 of them seem to be Mary and Ivan, with the third being the boy, who is probably Hayden Coombs. It's possible there are other people trapped within the videos too, but these are the ones we know to be there given the conversations we see. From these conversations we see, I think we can make a guess at who was communicating with Ivan on the original transfer tape, as the conversation we decode from Dear Mary talks about how they were scary about communicating to get Ivan's attention. The conversation also makes mention of this person being a sister and how they had no family, which needs to correlate with the information we hear about Elizabeth Mary in the very video this hidden conversation is under. Therefore, Mary is very likely to have been the person who, as Ivan said in his first message to Eric in the first transfer tape, wants all to see. It's even outright stated in WLP1 that Mary is behind why the tape was so corrupted. I also think, given the information we get about how Hayden likes to make art, Tonya's tape that was filled with the weird child drawings might have been hurting Hayden at that point. It does seem like now the old tapes are being transferred onto the computer and shared via networks in the cloud, that these ghosts in the machine are now able to travel between different videos, yet they seem to be trying to reach one in particular, home. If you recall, home video is what the formerly named corruption tape was named, and so it seems that they're trying to get to that video in particular, but why, other than it being safe, is never stated. What makes the home video so different to the rest of the tapes? We also know that Hayden was left in Cartoon to keep him safe, and that Cartoon is close to home. Given the messages in the description, I think the Cartoon video is the password video, which, after all, has a cartoon animation reel as its primary clip and has a description that talks to Hayden specifically. As we read the messages though, it does seem that Mary, while originally thankful to Ivan for trying to help them, loses her patience and eventually leaves Ivan behind in her attempts to reach home video. Ivan is seemingly in pain, and when Mary comes back in WLP3, he requests to go somewhere else if she's just going to leave him behind, as it hurts too much to be there specifically. From this, I'm guessing that the one with the ability to travel between tapes is Mary, and Ivan cannot do this as easily. He can, however, do as she once did and try and reach out through the videotapes to ask the watcher, "Can you help me find Eric?" and Eric himself to take him home. The central incident that was the reason Ivan got involved in the first place, we learn quite a bit about the Party 91st incident itself and potentially the motivations behind it. The most basic thing we learn is, of course, its name. The show clip we see of a mustached Red performing is said to be from a Party of 91, which is where it gets its name from, potentially from a police case file, and suggests that the party occurred in the year of 1991. This would mean that the incident took place nearly 20 years before JJ stumbled upon the files during his job and showed them to Ivan in 2010. The incident also occurred at Little Red's Mega Mall in Arkansas, which does mean I was right about Little Red's potentially owning actual malls. The news report on Party 91st informs us that 14 people died as a result of the incident, and the Rec Room forum post tells us that there was a freak accident involving a young boy and an adult woman who worked at the establishment, which could be a reference to Party 91st. However, given that we know that the Party 91st incident involved 3 men in pig masks storming the place and shooting it up, I'm not actually sure if the Rec Room post is talking about Party 91st, as such a shooting could hardly be described as a freak accident by any stretch. I also think that we get a roundabout hint about how this incident occurred that allows us to paint a rough narrative of what the story behind it is. During the Password video's reimagined version of the Little Red Riding Hood tale, it specifically mentioned that the pig searched for a uniform to wear and a nicely stitched employee hat. We also know from the news report that the doors had apparently been thought locked that day and that only an internal source could have opened them. Humming Humpty also talks about doors but says that they don't lock and that anyone could walk in. This makes me wonder if maybe someone stuck into Little Red's Mega Mall and disguised themselves as a worker to be able to let in the shooters later. The news report doesn't actually say which doors were supposedly locked, so maybe this person was able to walk into the open front doors as a customer, sneak to the back and take a uniform and a worker key, then open some back doors that only a staff member should have been able to reach, maybe some employee travel tunnels as were mentioned during the first transfer tape. As for the motive, it's a bit of a stretch, but we first need to talk about another key player in this entire thing, Mary. Mary is someone we'd previously gotten an image of through Count Your Years poem. It had made them seem unpleasant and cruel in some ways, but during the course of Vessel of Notion we don't get the opinion that this is the full story. Dear Mary is probably the best source to hit up first as the man on the phone talks about her. We learn that Mary seems to be her middle name, that she works as an engineer and looks after her younger brother. We also learn that there's something eye-catching about Mary, the way she handles herself and her control despite her off-putting demeanour, which correlates with the Mary birthday poem we've previously read. It seems that despite this though, the man on the phone was rather taken with her. Whether as a friend or if they were attracted to her, I don't know for certain. The next place we can go to get some ideas about Mary are the messages from the video descriptions. The way she talks, Mary sounds almost tired. She seems able to move between the videos, but can't seem to find her way home and needs Ivan's help to do so. She also seems to be taking care of the boy, Hayden, and leaves him in the cartoon video to be safe while she and Ivan work. However, she's also sort of impatient and at one point seems to be unfairly blaming Ivan for them not reaching home, and in Hard Boiled when Ivan tells her that he's sorry that he's not being able to get them home, she only replies, "Try harder." However, Mary doesn't seem to be a bad person, merely a broken one. A lot of the newer poems talk about beatings and contain a lot of anger in their lines. I think there's an argument to be made that Mary, who says that she's been left alone to raise her brother, might have had a bad childhood. Or else something happened to the parents that left Mary on her own to raise him and she was left emotionally damaged by this. There's even a possibility that something happened when she was younger to her mother, an event that is alluded to in Mary's birthday which could mean she felt responsible for what happened. Tone, especially, seems to hint at this as she is mentioned by name within it, and the poem contains lines such as broken and discarded from her family, just like him, and with her vulnerability, after months of Sunday beatings she was perfect and poisoned, just like him. And it's the poems that I think best support my theory on the shooting. As I said earlier, I think the poems give us insights into the mental state of some of the people in this story, and I specifically think they're the words and thoughts of the man on the phone. The reason I think this is that all the poems have some common themes running through them: Sunday beatings, abuse, wolves, dogs and pigs. They talk about parents and fathers who are cruel, not loving at all. We know from Dear Mary that the woman had opened up to the man on the phone about her home life and looking after her younger brother. It's possible that she also talked about aspects of her past as she grew to trust them. The man on the phone, from what we've seen or at least heard of him, seems to have a temper on them and also to consider themselves a burden to the people around them, both of which are signs of someone who might have been abused as a child. I also think that the picture placed in 3 of the poems suggested the order they should be read according to the order we see them in Vessel of Notion. Homely, tone, creation. The story of an abusive home, the start. The story of a relationship and an obstacle, the middle. The story of someone playing their part to hide a terrible deed after becoming a wolf, the end. As I said before, tone seems to suggest that Mary and the man on the phone found a common bond in talking about difficult pasts. However, the poems also seem to hint that the bond never went far enough for the man on the phone, with lines such as, "I thought you loved me, for once in my life I let you touch me, you ruined that night that wasn't homely, a gun to my right 'cause now I'm lonely," and, "She was kind to him, no, she was distant." This could easily have been down to whatever happened to Mary's family or mother in the past, or maybe she just felt that she didn't have time to start a relationship with her younger brother to look after and a job to hold down. But I think that Mary might have rejected him owing to an abuse of addictive substances on his part. There's a section of the YN poem that reads, "That home wasn't so homely once I plagued it right, with pills and bills and needles, so I plagued it right. The boxes where I sealed them, so I plagued it right." And if we recall, the final image of the password video made mention of a box that she put his toys into. This could be Hayden's understanding of Mary taking away the man on the phone's pills and bills and needles and locking them away from him. Thinking about it, it's possible that Hayden's box was the lunchbox that we've seen before, which would explain its presence during the breakdown part of Count Your Years. Maybe the man on the phone came to live with the two of them, but brought only trouble in the form of unpaid debts as well as addictive and potentially illegal substances that he'd been using to cope with his abusive childhood. And Mary, realising that such a person could easily get her only remaining family member taken from her if they found this stuff, kicked him out. So I think that the man on the phone decided that if she was being kept from him because of the younger brother, he'd help her with that problem by getting rid of Mary's younger brother. And I think that younger brother might have been the boy Hayden Coons. In a rage for the rejection and the man on the phone staged the Party 91st incident, Hayden and Mary died as a result. And, if I'm reading creation right, the man on the phone played a part to hide it, advanced through the company of Illusion Plus, but in his heart regretted that Mary died too. There's also the lines in Plague that make me wonder if it is addressing either Ivan or Andrew and Kara. The lines about not solving a mystery that instead the writer fed it to them. Does this mean that the writer of that poem leaked clues to either Ivan or the later pair, making them think they were solving a mystery only to try and keep them satisfied and stop them digging deeper? Or, more sinisterly, were they feeding them the knowledge in order to justify getting rid of them? If so, why? Or could it possibly be a hint that maybe Andrew wasn't as okay with Kara's rejection as he seemed to be? During the course of this video, we learned that the hold screen that Illusion Plus employees put into the videos they're working on are referred to by those employees as the back halls. And while the screen detailing that the video is on a partnership between Illusion Plus and Comic Cruise Lines says that no other back haul variations have been identified, we've already seen someone using them before, Ivan's messages in the first transfer video. Which makes me wonder why, in all the cases we see, why does every staff member list their name and their job title? Is there some reason, or is it merely habit for them? Like with Ivan, both Andrew and Kara use their back hall screens to communicate, at first because Kara's email had gone down, then later to hide their investigation into Ivan's disappearance. Judging by the date of July 13th, 2013 at the start of the video, then further text about editor's notes, we can hazard a guess that Kara and Andrew were communicating this way for at least 2 months, possibly even 3. July, August, September of 2013. Of the two of them, Andrew seems to have been interested in this longer than Kara. He already seems to know a little bit of the rumours surrounding Ivan's disappearance, for example, while Kara has to ask. However, this seems more because Andrew's actually been with Illusion Plus longer than Kara, who has only been there a year, probably starting after Ivan vanished. However, at the same time, Andrew knows that the company doesn't look kindly on their employees snooping, and I think that the back hall screen that merged with the video itself might have contained some important detail about how Andrew knew this. We do know that Ivan was mentioned during this screen, so it's likely that detail was tied to Ivan's disappearance. And, just as I was recording the third video, Aquanta showed off another back hall screen to the Discord, which I'm going to put up now so you can see it. I think by reading it, this one would slot in between the screen that had Andrew ask Kara out, and the last one, the two speaking, and does tell us a bit more about them. We learn that Andrew apparently has some issues with disassociation and commitment, something that Kara understands because she has a brother with similar issues. Andrew also turned up at Kara's house, something that made her a bit nervous, but it seems that they've managed to patch things up. Andrew then shows Kara something with an expired link, but given what they say afterwards, it seems like the video also used placeholder screens for communication. So far, the only other video we've seen that does this is the very first transfer tape. and it seems likely from the other things said that it was that video, which explains how Andrew came to know a lot about Ivan and what he was doing before he vanished. However, he mentions that he still had access to the warehouse. So for what purpose did he previously get this access? We also know that this interest in the case seems to have gained someone's attention, as the two of them are notably labelled as suspects in the screen that precedes the Little Red's Marine Mania section of the video. Suspects of the disappearance, maybe? I do also have a theory that the voice we hear in the brief cut-in during Tell Her Hair might be Andrew's voice, talking to Kara and accidentally making her feel uneasy by letting his mouth run away with him. In the end, both of them decided to go check the same warehouse that Ivan was chased through for more clues. This first gets suggested around August, but Andrew then tries to ask Kara out, only to be turned down. The next back haul in the video after this asks if Kara is backing out on him, which I think means the two of them didn't end up sneaking into the warehouse then. However, Kara quickly recovers and sends Andrew a couple of links, the first few having expired but the last still being usable. This puts the two back on their mystery solving track, and they decide that they're going to visit the warehouse together and hopefully put everything to rest for a while. But the last back haul has only a single readable message from Ivy, who wasn't working on this video but a cartoon instead. And in it, Ivy seemed to be leaving the two of them a message. "I thought you guys would be home by now." This same back haul also has a massive block of binary, which the community got stuck into translating. "What is he doing?" "Finding you." "Where are they now?" "Finding you now." "But I'm here." "You were late." "Are you okay?" "Mary." "Mary, hello?" "The pig's in town. We all go deeper." "What do you mean?" "Mary, what do you mean?" "We can't go home yet. They need our help. Go deeper, Ivan." Another conversation, seemingly between Ivan and Mary, stuck into the end of the video that the two of them were editing. They went looking for him, but Ivan tried to come to them in the video to do what Mary had done for him, but also to find Eric, as this tape Andrew and Kara was working on was named Introduction Tape at the very start of this footage, and as I mentioned before, I think there's a possibility that it was Eric at the start of the tape asking us for our help in solving this. But Ivan was too late, because Andrew and Kara are already gone, and from the sounds of it, Ivy, the person Kara is dating, hasn't heard from either of them. They haven't come home. Andrew and Kara are in trouble because they've dug too deep, and now Mary and Ivan need to try and help them before they can go home, before it's too late. There are a bunch of other observations I've been able to make during this installment of Little Red, things I've noticed or questions I've been asking myself. Firstly, we see that the name of one of the creators of the Woodland Pals cartoon is Ali Burrow, and I think that this person is the Ali Michelle we heard about briefly in the first Little Red transfer. We know from that video that Hayden Burrow was the original creator of the Little Red character, but that Ali Michelle modified it later. During one of the back haul screens, Andrew tells us that Hayden Burrow's wife thought the character would be better off being more kid-friendly. It's entirely possible that Ali Michelle was credited under her married name for Woodland Pals, or else used the two names interchangeably. It's also possible to guess that the blanked out word from the golden fact the two are mentioned in was something like mature or similar. The second bit is that we have a little bit of evidence that suggests that somebody actually went looking for clues in a Comet cruise liner that was being run under Little Red's Marine Mania at the time. We quite obviously get that one clip near the end of someone with a flashlight peeking into a cabin and then possibly getting jumped, but pay close attention to the background of the documentary title screen. It's a thin, narrow corridor with a steep staircase which the camera operator is descending, holding a flashlight. Such steep stairways and narrow corridors are typical of ships, and suggest that there might even be more footage that was shot out there which wasn't included in Vessel of Notion. The third thing I want to bring up is the man in the suit. You know, that same faceless gentleman that keeps showing up everywhere. He was in the original transfer tape which was made in the 80s, and he's still in this new, more modern tape that's been dated 2013. While easily just a placeholder person, this man, or one who resembles him, actually appears in Vessel of Notion, completely real and with an actual face. The first time is during the opening part for the documentary during the title screen. The second picture shows a man who resembles our faceless friend in the darkness. And then we see what appears to be the same man briefly during the jewelry store tour. This guy was even a Qantas avatar for a while. So my question is, who is this guy and does it even matter? Why has his design remained the same even as Little Red, Gally and Lox's design have changed down the years? And because he wears a suit, is he somehow related to the hand holding the paper bag in WLP2, just because that arm seems to be in a suit too? There also seems to be another minor pattern emerging relating to Lox and the pigs, specifically that the pigs seem to want Lox's porridge. During Tell a Hare, among the things Hopper tells us is that they're taking the bear's porridge, and later on seems to be angry at the pigs for some reason, possibly because they are the ones who took it. Similarly, during the Acre Ridge game, while Lox is eating his porridge, the boss graphic, who resembles a pig, rises up behind him. Back in the first transfer tape, we do also briefly see a frowning pig after the fairy tale reading cartoon starts to go off the rails, which makes me wonder if they had something to do with why Lox was crying in that video. We also see that the pig seems to have been invited to the party in Woodland Pals, but then later is pressuring Lox to put it in, and since we see a paper lunch bag being handed to someone later, it's possible that the pig was demanding Lox put his porridge into the paper bag, which could be representing another typical lunch storage, a lunchbox. In this way, it almost feels like Mary is being compared to the pig, as we know that she's been previously described in a way that makes her seem untidy and off-putting, and I theorised that she took the man on the phone's addictive substances, his porridge. It's also possible that the pig represents the person that craves the addictive substances. In this way, the pig taking the porridge from Lox could be seen to be another side to Lox, similar to the clock from Count Your Years. Lox represents the scared person using the porridge to cope, while the pig represents the more aggressive and demanding urge inside that demands more and more porridge to sate their appetite. There's also the question of the second account that's been uploading videos, besides the Quanta Zone. Carno Avo was the uploader for Tell a Hare, Honey Bear, and the Password video, as well as being the owner of the Hayden document. This channel was created shortly before the trailer for Vessel of Notion came out, and there's no information on their channel. No avatar, no descriptions, nothing. The community even tried to see if Carno Avo was a cipher of something, but came up empty-handed. I ran it through an anagram scrambler, and while most of it was nonsense, I did come up with one, Nova Orca. Not that we've seen signs of a sea animal character yet, but maybe it's a hint at a new character. Probably not. Either way, Carno Avo might have some role to play, so will need to be watched. A brief thought I've had is about the older model of Red, who is apparently involved with the Party 91st incident. We see a Red dressed as a magician during the actual footage we get, but my attention was taken by a certain part of Little Red's history. Apparently, while Collide made the first Little Red animatronic, there were prototypes before this first one. That seems a very strange detail to point out for no reason. The rule of Chekhov's gun states that if something is brought up, it will see use at some point during the story. Could it be that the older model was a prototype maybe? I also wonder about the connection of the man on the phone to Ivan, especially since the last message he left for the man seems to have hinted that he worked for Illusion Plus and was in a role above Ivan. He specifically states that he pushes people, and feels that Ivan's investigation of Party 91st is poor thanks for this. Out of all the people from the first transfer tape, there's one name we haven't seen mentioned, Alan. Alan was the person that Ivan and Eric were using their backhaul screens to avoid. Alan seemed to be their superior. Is it possible that Alan did see those backhaul screens? Is it possible that Alan is the man on the phone? I also think that Honey Bear is in some way connected to the breakdown sequence of Count Your Years. Once sped up, the distorted audio at the start of Honey Bear is similar, if not the same, as the audio that played during it. The fact that it suddenly cuts into the sound of children playing just seems to suggest to me that being surrounded by children having fun and being noisy was indeed the trigger. Hearing it first in Lox's head, and then as it truly is. I also worry that the story of Andrew and Kara might begin to parallel that of the man on the phone and Mary a little, in that both men were rejected by the women they fell for. I'm hoping that the parallels don't lead to a similar outcome and see Andrew responsible for Kara's death at some point. I do wonder though, with Kara's brother having similar disassociation and commitment issues, could the man on the phone be Kara's brother? Or is Kara's brother the one who represents Lox, if not the man on the phone? The realistic galley also makes me wonder a little as to its context. We've only ever seen a realistic bird in Galley Broad the Way before, so I wonder if there's some connection there. I've also thought about whether it might have some connection to Little Red's first redesign. Apparently Little Red was redesigned to make him more kid-friendly, and we've still yet to discover when Galley, Lox, or any other character was invented or introduced. I wonder if, maybe, at first, Gally had a much more realistic appearance. What makes me wonder this is that when she changes, the hat also changes with her. Just slightly. This theory is a bit of a long stretch though. I also realised upon re-watching the first transfer tape that the position being covered in it is referred to as a digital cater at several points, most specifically during the map tour of the mall.
Here is where you should be. As a digital cater, you should not be seen by the consumer.
Digital cater is also shown on this small document here in Vessel of Notion, which at least tells us that this tape might too be aimed at employees in the same department. But why specifically are all the tapes in this department affected? And, for a final bit of speculation, I do wonder if a Quantum maybe squeezed in a clue into the trailer with his choice of song. Video killed the radio star. Ivan was an audio technician, so is this a clue to the job of the person who possibly killed him? Does this person work in visuals? And with that, we finally reached the end of this long trip through all Vessel of Notion had to offer. Once again, I need to thank the community for helping track down all the pieces so I could study them. Without their help, this video would have been even more delayed than it ended up being. I'm sorry that I've not been able to piece this together as well as I would have liked, but hopefully I've given you something to think about. There does seem to be more little reds coming, so maybe we'll be given more pieces and more context and make it all fit better next time. After all, we still have a lot of questions to be answered, such as what happened to Andrew and Kara, and I'd like to see more Woodland Pal stuff in future, if there's any more to come. But in all this content, I feel like I forgot something that was kind of important to say. Probably doesn't matter.